clearance level 74, ground command, guardian, founder. Founder of United Network News is a bit more explanatory, and these various other sort of listings here. So if you could kind of go down that bio a bit and explain, what these terms mean to you, and we'll start there. Okay.
Okay. Well, we have global clearances and national clearances in every country, right? The US has a scale that goes all the way up to cosmic, right? So you have top secret, which is down here. Then 18 would be like the president of the United States, if we actually had a living one. But but he would be down here. 23 would be like your Fed people, Federal Reserve people, those type of people. And then you get into like the Space Force folks. Above that, you have Luna clearance, you have cosmic clearance. So above that, you have a couple of other layers, right? And this would be members of the order of high rank. So what we did is we played a little game, like NATO would be a level 63 or 64. And so I got into kind of a clearance level argument with the order, who kept, if I registered a 71, they would register a 72. And then we took that right away. And then by the time I hit like 74, the reason for this is because it gives you two different things, right? So number one, obviously I have access to the key intelligence and military system that I built. But in addition to that, I have immunity because of that against the order that I'm fighting against, right? So you have to have an officer of higher rank than the person you're going after in order to put out a contract against them or to put them in jail or something like that. So I've had this come up a number of different times, most recently with General John Raymond in the White House, because that's who's running the White House right now. And he tried to have them come pick me up. I've had other people try to come pick me up, and I outranked them. So there's nothing they can do. They can't put that order out without my superior's authorization, and there isn't one.
Okay, so we're talking about a hierarchy, and it obviously, well, at least to me, appears that you're going off planet as well. So when you say you outrank them, can you explain where your rank is, and why would they obey that ranking sort of system? Why, who's got the power in that situation?
Okay, so we're talking about a system that everybody is aware of, right? When we're talking about clearances and programs, and now the Space Force is in the front, and then there's still the SSP guys in the back. So you have that whole structure as far as a military and intelligence system, right? And then you also have a secondary structure that always existed above these systems. So people talk about like, oh, the Rothschilds are terrible people. And they talk about, the Bowers, and they talk about the Morgans and the Carlyles and a lot of, and then they talk about secret space programs and DUMBs. But what people, even themselves, the people that are in these programs don't realize is there's a whole nother hierarchy that existed on this planet forever. This is not a new thing. You've talked about it with some of your guests. I know you interviewed Shane the Ruiner. He has a whole blog called The Ruiner something 777, right? And that blog tells you that there's a whole other world going on here that we, as the average everyday people, know nothing about. Well, I got thrown into this thing, and I got to learn all about them and who they were and who, who is who. So when I talk about a clearance level, we're talking about over, I guess you would say, although I don't work with anyone in the space program, I don't work with anyone in the SSP, I don't work with anyone in the order. From time to time, they do contact me, and obviously they're very angry with me for many different reasons, right? Their whole timeline structure is gone. And somehow I'm getting blamed for this. But nonetheless, my clearance is only for that purpose, right? So when you're fighting your enemy, they respect from that level down. I'm not talking about others or anything like that, because nobody cares about that. But in the world, the way it's worked, it's always been a hierarchical system, right? So you have the order at the top, you have the covens above the order, you have, so on and so forth above that, right? Now, below that, you have a bunch of military people and intelligence people that believe in this system because it protects them from each other. So,
Okay, well, maybe we can just kind of cut to the chase a little bit here.
yep.
Now, who, in your view, is, can we name names? Who's at the very top of this so-called order or list of orders?
If you were to go with the existing structure as it is today, because it's very different than it was years ago, I would tell you, you would be called, there's a guy by the code name Mr. Black. He's an Italian. I have never heard his name, but I can fathom some guesses. And then you have Klaus, who's risen in the ranks due to the recent elimination of 2 different covens. And you have this Richard Weiss guy that keeps popping up all over the place, giving orders that are crazy. So I would say right now, since the changes that took place on the 8th of August, these 3 seem to be the one barking out orders, to the White House, to the Space Force, to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Those are the people I see most often right now.
Okay, so if now at this point you're not going off planet yet.
No.
So, and my understanding is that you actually worked with, correct me if I'm wrong, Marduk, and that you were also trained by the Anunnaki. And this is your claim. Is that correct?
Trained is one thing, schooled is another. So they all lie. They're very charming, right? Marduk is very, very charming, and cunning and whatnot. His father, Enlil, would speak in riddles all the time. When the tree blows to the left, that is when it is time to go. I'm like, you have to figure out what that means. And it's kind of a game for them. Humans are a game for them. We were always considered slaves. We were a farm, we're cattle. Myself, no different to them. And the one thing that they just wanted to do was be able to control me. That was it. That was their goal. So I learned from them, from talking to them, a lot of things. And by them, so-called, I guess you would say, constantly trying to manipulate me. So I got schooled. Like, it's like, well, you learned a lesson, right? It's not that, well, here, Kim, let us help you. They had no intention of helping me do anything ever, not even a little bit.
Okay, so I think because my audience is not going to be familiar as I am with your background, maybe we need to even go back further. So let's talk about when your childhood, somehow you got into contact directly with the Anunnaki. And there's not that many humans that are in direct contact. I don't think. I mean, I know there are some. And I myself I believe I've had some contact with them. So how did your contact work out? Can you talk about that?
Well, for most of these folks that are involved in this organization, right, we call the order, their Bible is Project Looking Glass. So they live by it, they breathe by it. It's how their whole day goes. You've had guests on the show that have said that it didn't stop working in 2012, and they're right. That doesn't mean the lies stopped coming in 2012, but the people that actually had access to it, right, knew the game was over, the jig was up. But they still continue on because there was a 17.8% chance they could revert back to the dark timeline. Okay. So if it was preferable for M and his structure, he spent 1,008 years training and working with the dark, the people he would call the slave masters. and they would even make fun of them. But they were just so programmed and so under control. He felt that, his system would continue if he could convince me that these people were the good guys. You should work with these people. But that's not the way it worked out. So,
Okay, but and I appreciate that, and we can delve into some of that more deeply. But I think, just in terms of my questions, so that people kind of get the understanding of what's your relationship.
okay.
How again did
So,
you get in
so in
contact?
Project Looking Glass, right? So I'm sorry, it's a little long explanation. So in Project Looking Glass, they saw me changing the timeline, right? There are others also that they saw. So they were looking for the people with specific DNA. So the CIA back in the 70s devised a program where they were literally combing through trash looking for these people, right? So on a cup or a bottle or whatever it was. So they actually located me in 1983, according to them. Now, first time I ever saw M, right, as he still looked to the day he died, I was 8 years old. So he was
Okay,
trying to
and what
see
did
if he
what
could.
did and this is Marduk, I'm assuming you mean by M?
Mhm.
Okay, and what did he look like?
He looked like an older Asian man.
Okay.
And until 2015, that's who I thought he was.
Okay, so he manifested as an older Asian man, and was he short, tall, just regular?
Average height, for a man.
Okay.
I mean, everybody's taller than me. It's hard to, so I'd say he was probably about 5'10", maybe.
All right. And so you did this person appear in your dream space, or did you see him
No,
walk into your house, or how did that work?
physically in person.
Okay. And how just how did that happen? In other words, what was the dynamic? Did he knock on your door? Did he call you? Did he make an arrangement? Did he show up at your house? You were how old when 8?
At the time, my mother was dating a gentleman with the last name Donovan. As you know, Donovan is a prominent name in the CIA. I knew nothing about this stuff as a kid. So he was kind of like, they were together about 6 years or so by that point, and he took me to a Freemason lodge,
Okay.
and there he was sitting. I remember this.
Right. And what city, state, or whatever, where was this?
Massachusetts.
Okay. All right. Okay. So were your parents what we would call Illuminati, members of a secret society? No, but they did
No.
take you to you went to a Freemason lodge.
Well, this gentleman that my mother was dating, probably on purpose,
Oh, okay.
last name was Donovan.
All right. So you met this Asian gentleman, and how did things proceed from that point?
I was 8 years old. I mean, he, gave me two flowers, asked me which one I liked better. It was, kind of trying to get to know me. And I didn't really, I was 8. I had just started getting a lot of these abilities at that time.
Okay.
So I didn't feel like he was going to harm me in any way. I just thought it was weird that we were the only people in there. I
Okay.
remember Tom
So
Jones playing on the jukebox. I have an audiographic and a photographic memory. So, I mean, I remember some song by Tom Jones playing in the background, and it was just kind of a little bit weird. Like, why am I sitting here talking to this guy? He tried to say it was his friend and all of these things I was meeting. So I remember that. And then I also remember in 1983, which was, I would have been 11 at the time, I was at the dentist when they came in and swabbed me to verify that I was the one that they found in their DNA program. I remember that.
okay.
Yeah.
So so
1998, they came
so
hunting for me then. I turned 25 years old, um, which coincides with the story that one of the interviews you did, where he said that they found out in the mid 90s that there was no way to make their timeline work. So they came looking for me around that time again. I was being followed around everywhere in 1998.
okay. So were you when you started to be schooled by M, as you call him, was this in 98 or later or before that?
Nope. Never saw him again until 2010.
Okay, that's relatively recent. So is
Yep.
that when the schooling began?
Yep.
Okay, so
Most
let's
specifically,
just,
May of 2011.
all right, so, but they did come find you. Did you have, I mean, you were 25, certainly you were old enough to have some, understanding around you. So, and you say you had special abilities. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about the special abilities and why at 25 you became aware of them. They were tracking you down. What were they tracking you down for? Why did they think you were
Uh,
going to help their timeline or hurt it?
Um, so the ability started about 8. So I always had an intuitive ability. I would see the lights in the darkness. I would see all kinds of things in people and around people that nobody else could see but me. I never told a soul. I had an experience at 14 years old with a guy that started at my work. He looked kind of Egyptian, didn't know who that person was. And, I was babysitting. He came over to the house. I was a young 15, 16-year-old girl. He was cute. I didn't know any better. And, so he jumps on top of me at some point during this movie we're watching, and his eyes glowed green. So, and he said, "Welcome to my world." I had no idea who this person was. Turns out later, I didn't find out until about 2012, 2013, that his nickname was the Dark Prince and he was one of the parents. No, so I didn't
He
know.
was one of the what's
The parents,
parents.
they were called the parents. So you
Parents of what?
had, well, in on Earth, so to
Mhm.
speak, right? Marduk was like the manager, the farm manager, because we're a farm. So he was the farm manager. Then you had Enki and Enlil,
Right.
right? His brother, and right. Okay, so right below them, you would have had this group of humans that they would have called themselves humans of the future. They had superior technology. They lived thousands of years. Those are the parents.
So these are the human hybrids, what some would
Humans of
call Nephilim.
what we would have been if we were not interfered with. That's what I like to say.
Okay. All right. So he was one of those?
Yes.
Okay. And so when he jumped on top of you, you
I
know,
threw him across the room.
oh, okay.
And like, what is that? Who are you? He would never answer me. He just sat there and looked at me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so that was your experience at 14.
Around 15, 16. At the age of 25, I was living a normal life. I was working for a bank. Um, I mean, of course, I always had my abilities, my intuition. I just had no idea why all of a sudden, if I went to lunch with a friend, 20 men came rushing in after me. I mean, I didn't think I was that great. I'm like, why is this happening? So and then it ended as quickly as it started. And according to people I met later, they said I wasn't ready yet. But 2 ages that they try to, how do you say it? They believe are milestones in a human's life is 25. They believe you start to think and your abilities are get stronger, and
Mhm.
then also at 40. So
Okay.
they were really trying to make sure that by the time I hit the age of 40, that I did not perform the function that we're performing right now, doing the things that we're doing right now.
Okay. So so you went through your life and did you have, again, you said you got schooled in 2010, I think it is. So did you, I don't know how old you are. So was this, had you reached 40
I'll
and
be 49
that's,
this month.
so, okay. So was that when you reached 40 that they contacted you and started, as you calling it, schooled you, or how does that work?
Well, um, what happened is so I was always in banking. I started 3 different banks, companies. That was what I did for work, right? Not on the high level, didn't know the Morgans or any of those people. I was just doing, what normal people do, right? Entrepreneurs do. And so by 2007, I knew the market was going to have a crash. and I had a business partner at the time. I said, look, we need to diversify. This isn't going to work with just products that we have. And, ended up selling the business because he didn't agree with me. And that was kind of the end of that. So by 2008, the market did crash, right? End of '08. So I was like, okay, well, I need to get, my lines of credit. I had an $18 million line of credit. I mean, for a business, for doing bonds and that kind of thing. And I was like, well, I got to go find the money. Where'd the money go? Like, how do we not have money? And so that's what started leading me down the rabbit hole, I guess. I went to London. I was going to other countries. I'm like, well, if there's no money in the US, maybe there's money over here. I started meeting people in hotels and, brokers and that kind of thing. And I was looking to get, I went to a few banks over there looking for a line of credit. And then I was in London in beginning of '09, and I was in a hotel. I was in I think it was the Park Place Hotel, Sheridan Park Place on Piccadilly. And I was introduced to a guy who's Nathan Rothschild, who said he wanted me to come for the weekend to this country club called Thorn Country Club. And I was like, I don't even know what a Rothschild was. So I was pretty, vanilla American. And I didn't go. I wouldn't go. I said, well, I know I looked in the internet. There's an office on Bond Street, which was right around the corner. I was like, why don't we just go there and have talk? He was telling me about funding all my lines of credit and the projects that I had that I was funding because I did commercial lending and that kind of thing. And that was a no for me. I'm not going 2-3 hours outside the city on a train in a place with a person I have no idea who they are. And then I started doing research on the internet, and then I started to learn somewhat of who these people are. And I figured out that the gold was gone. I started talking to Chinese elder people and went down the whole train. That's why I try to educate people on my experiences. So in 2010, I was talking to, unbeknownst to me, a German SS officer and a member of the French royal family of Rothschild, right? So they said that I wanted to bring the gold back to the United States. That's the whole reason why I embarked on this trip, because I thought if we could do that, then we could, I wanted to put it in the Treasury, not the Fed. I started to get an understanding of the difference and that kind of thing. So embarked on this journey, went to Switzerland, went to Germany, went back to Switzerland, went to Russia. And that's where I ran into him again the second time, because it was 3 times. And so at the time, they were working very heavily with Putin. And I arrived there, the Fed arrived there, some people from the SSP in Germany arrived there, a guy named Philip Love and General Ritchie arrived there. So many people came, and everybody was expecting me to trigger the system that I really didn't know much about. I knew there was a back ledger. I knew there was an off ledger financial system at the time because of the Chinese elders, right? So we had tons of Chinese people show up. We had the Black Mullah show up from the Middle East.
Okay, so maybe you can explain how these people saw you in a certain role. Is it because Marduk had told them, or that you were a certain bloodline, that they, you were going to be their representative or something of this nature? Like, why, would they admit you into their sort of circle, so to speak?
Project Looking Glass.
Again, because they identified you in Project Looking Glass.
So they had to control me.
So they all, okay, so.
Befriend me and control me.
All right, okay. And then also you're saying they acted as though you had some kind of control over moving the money. So why would they think that much?
I didn't know it. I'll tell you exactly what happened from there. So I had an Asian lady who was confirmed as a trustee, right? Who I had been talking to from Thailand. Her name was Rod Sharon. I remember that. Don't remember her first name off the top of my head, honestly. So she met me there in Russia. The whole reason why we landed in Russia, because I thought Putin was a good guy, right? They were starting the branding of the savior program over there of him being the greatest man on earth, right? If you remember back in 2014, if he ran for president in any country in the world, including the United States, he would have won, right? He was that popular back then. And that was part of Marduk's plan. So, but I saw a speech that he did at the World Economic Forum that said that, you know, the order is going to take over and this is a security risk for the whole world and we don't want a new world order, that kind of thing, right? So I thought, well, he must be good, right? Maybe he's a good person. Maybe that's why everybody hates Russia. Who knows? But they had put a Class C block on the trustee lady's, Thai lady's passport. So the only place I could get her in without a visa was Russia. And I knew it was one of the 7 places in the world you could go to trip the entire system at that time. So that's how I landed in Russia. I'm sitting in my hotel room. I'm dealing with this lady who's just virtually bat crazy, right? And awful. I mean, greedy and crazy and dark. I could feel how dark she was. I hated being around her. I tried to be nice to her.
Okay, now I'm not sure, why did you have to be in a room with this person? I guess
I brought her there.
not sure. Okay,
I
but
got her to this
who
point.
is she such that you needed to have her there?
Well, I thought she was the trustee. I was nobody. I was just trying
So
to.
she's some kind of pivotal person that handles the system, in theory.
In theory, at the time, that was my
That's what you
impression
thought. Okay.
until I got further into it and figured out that a trustee means absolutely zero. So, yeah, Marduk
And
always had the
Asian?
final say.
Was she Asian?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She was
All
from
right.
Thailand.
Sorry?
She was from Thailand.
All right. And did she claim that she was associated with the elders or what?
I met her through elders. They, you know, these Chinese people
They
told me that I had to
designated
go
her
see
as-
her.
Okay.
Yeah. Like when
All
I
right.
asked them about releasing the gold to the United States, because that was remember, that's what I was doing so that we could fix our economy. So I could get my credit lines back and my life back. I know that sounds selfish, but honestly, that's what I was doing. Right.
All right.
So I meet her and in Russia, finally, physically in person. We spent many hours on the phone and we landed there. And that's when everybody else showed up because they thought, now, to me, I was just arranging for this woman to do this job, right? This greedy, selfish, horrible woman with awful, awful energy. I mean, awful, to do her job, right? So that I could get my fee, right, for doing the thing and arranging the thing. Obama was in office right at the time. So I thought I was doing a good thing. And so we go through this whole thing. They retina scan her and stuff and nothing works. I knew it didn't work. I didn't know why it didn't work, but it didn't work, right? And so it's like, okay. And so about a day or so later, I get a call from a friend of mine that works with the Department of Defense, and we are literally just friends, right? And he goes, congratulations. I said, for what? He goes, well, you're the new trustee, except you're different than all the other ones. You'll get a veto vote. It was voted on and you were voted in. Now, I don't even know who voted on or voted in, or even if that was true. Because how do they know about me in 1983? This makes no sense, right? In 1983, they knew I was there. They came and saw me when I was 8 years old. It's the same guy. Right. He didn't age a minute.
They're using Project Looking Glass, so all these people are following that. And well, let's just also say that Project Looking Glass is in essence an AI. I mean, so that people understand. It's a technology, but it's also an AI.
And it's also fed by someone. Someone puts that information, the etherical information in there.
Okay, we can get into that definitely, but I don't want to lose the train here. So, so back, you're with this woman. You've now been, told you're the trustee, and she's not. I'm assuming she's deposed at this point, or
no? She was still around. I was informed by my friend at the DoD that the Russian government was going to be coming to my hotel, and they would tell me this, and they did. About an hour or two later. Okay. But he called me first. And they said, who are you? Who are you? And I was like, I'm just here doing this. I don't know how I got this job, but my first instinct was, wow, this is the greatest job in the world. I can help so many people. I can do so many projects. We're going to turn this place around. What a mess it is. And little did I know that was the beginning of the end of me having any kind of normal life whatsoever. I hit everybody's radar.
Okay, so at this point, you become a trustee. You and this is again, what year is it? 20
This
20.
would be in March of the announcement was made to me in March of 2011 in Russia. And I left Russia on April 5th, 2011. And whatever you want to call the old Asian man, Marduk, told me that he would be in touch. About mid-May, he called me. And we spent about, I remember my cell phone bills, 35,000 minutes, in a month, talking constantly.
On the phone. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just curious because at this point you're getting sort of very deeply involved. Did you have like, psychic dreams? Did you have visitations? Did you have what one might call preparation in any way, sort of, in your dreams and or visions and or psychic information coming at you prior to this kinds of stuff?
I did. Right before this happened. So before I landed in Switzerland and Germany in September of 2010, okay, so this trip didn't take place till November, and I was gone for several months out of the country. So in September of 2010, I was taken to China. Okay. I went on about a 10-mile hike with some little old guy who was about up to my shoulders, and I'm about 5'5", 5'6", so he was very short, wearing a white Asian type suit, not a Thai suit, like an American suit. And he didn't speak English, so I had a translator there. And we got taken by a truck to a spot, let out there, went about, it had to be a solid 10 miles into the woods, right? And we went down, there was a stone staircase, and the translator was not allowed to come in, but me and the old man could go. So we went down the staircase, around the corner, and we ended up in a room, and there was a sun in the tile on the floor, and then there was some Georgian columns. It wasn't a very large room, and there were other people already in there waiting. So there was white people, there was, Asian people, there was African people. I mean, there was people of all colors in there, and everybody was just sitting around talking to each other. So, of course, the guy that I went with didn't speak English. So I was just kind of like observing. So at one point in time, everybody started going around and they were standing on the points of the sun. Now the sun in the floor has, it was like a brown tile shaped in the floor. If that makes any sense, like a mosaic sun.
Yeah, sure.
And then everybody started standing on these points around the sun. And there was probably about 30 or 40 people in there. So they bring out this box, right? A very pretty box, looked to be gold or some kind of metal to me. And there were rods that went through the two sides, like the old casket style. And they brought it and they put it in the middle of the floor. I'm like, oh God, did someone die or is someone going to die? Because it looked like a casket to me, right? So I'm just sitting there. And then a couple of the gentlemen that were carrying the rods opened the box, and out pops this ball of light and a massive wind. So this, in my Catholic upbringing mind, is the Ark of the Covenant. Okay. It's exactly how everybody described it. So the ball of light pops up and I'm just mesmerized, because what I feel is the most intense feeling of unconditional love you could possibly imagine, and I got tears in my eyes. I mean, it's just an amazing, it would be like what I would think people would feel if you went to our whatever heaven is, right? Like I felt like I was in heaven, like the love, the amazing feeling, the wind. So I'm kind of mesmerized by this for a few minutes. And then I look up and everybody's gone, except for the old man that brought me there, who was standing behind me, like using me as like a shield.
Hmm.
And he just turns around and he looks at me and he goes like that. And then that was it. And then it was like a test.
Okay, fair enough. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Since then, I have found 3 other boxes like that, just so you know. That was the largest one I saw, but I have found 3 other ones like it in different locations.
Okay, and when you say you found them, did you go looking for them?
Yeah. I had found them first, and then I went to that location and got the box, basically.
Okay, so somehow, like on a psychic level, or did someone tell you about it?
No, it's all me. So on a psychic level, I found the boxes.
Okay.
I found the one in Saudi Arabia that the Russians took, because I was working with, remember, I thought Putin was still a good guy even after I left. And he's working with Marduk and Enlil. We had meetings every Saturday. They sent me a little pink satellite phone. I would have these talks with them every Saturday night, their time, Saturday morning, my time. This went on for years, right?
All
I'm
right.
thinking
And
they're
what
the
did
good.
you talk about?
What did we talk about?
Mhm.
Uh, I had a lot of indicators along the way that these were not good people, but I thought they told me they were my boss,
Okay.
right? They paired me up with Putin. They told me I was yin and he was yang, right? Here I am thinking, the other guy, they called themselves M, grandfather and uncle. So here's the elusive grandfather everybody talks about. Wow, this is so great, right? I'm like, here I hit the top,
Okay, and what
and
did this so-called grandfather look like? And this is
um,
Enki, I assume. Is this Enki?
yeah, they all looked Asian-like, I guess. They can do something called mimicking, where what you see with your eyes isn't necessarily what it is that's right in front of you, right? So it's affecting the emotional and etheric level of matter. So you see what your heart and mind sees, right? Until it's
Sure.
no more, right? So
So you're having conversations with them. They're pairing you up with Putin. When
yeah,
you say pairing you up,
we're
in
supposed
what
to be
way?
partners.
Lovers?
Oh yeah, they wanted that too. They said that would be really good if that worked out.
Okay, and was Putin there in person when this was going on?
On the meetings were on the phone, and I
Right.
didn't actually get back there until 2015.
I know, but was Putin on the phone
Yeah,
with you
they were
guys?
all there, sometimes
Okay.
video. Yep.
And so they told you to your face that you were, as you say, yin and Putin was yang, like the chosen ones they
Yeah,
chose to
yeah,
somehow run the world. Is that the idea?
that was what they wanted. Yeah.
Okay. So okay, so at that point you're again, just remind me, how old are you at this point?
So these conversations started happening in 2011. That's when Putin became really popular with everyone, and then the campaign continued till about 2015, and then you never heard about him again. And we had a different savior come up, right? Program. So
Who's the other savior then?
Trump,
Oh, all right.
same group,
I
same
mean, they
organization.
chose him. They chose him.
Yes,
Okay.
they did.
All right. So let's just so I understand. So Putin, did you ever have like one-on-one discussions with Putin without them there?
Yes.
You did.
Mhm.
Okay. And what about this idea that Putin actually was replaced by a clone at a certain point?
That happened in 2015.
Okay.
Failures just to secure the asset.
Meaning
He failed
that
them.
the human one either died or got replaced by a clone, right?
There are reports, and I never got the real clear story, that he hadn't been himself even prior to 2015. But I will tell you this, whenever you see someone show up with the black eye, and then, one eye kind of goes like this and that kind of thing, and then the bulging eyes, lots of times that's an indication of a viral infection, like Mattis, General Mattis.
Okay. All right. So,
Okay.
so you felt,
Soros.
all right, but you felt this about Putin when? Before, like before 2015, is that what you're saying? Before he was replaced by the
I went back to Russia in July of 2015. Um, and I was supposed to meet with everyone, including him. Um, I met with grandfather and M and uncle, and M and I got into it because I didn't agree with what he was doing. So I already figured out a lot of things about November of the year prior. So it had been several months since I had been questioning them in totality. So I only went there to meet them face to face and confront them. That was my purpose for going, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had already heard a lot about and intuitively heard about what Putin was doing, side deals he was making, all based on the fact that you own the golden goose, right? Now, I didn't know this at the time until this incident. So during this incident, there was a confrontation between me and M. I saw what M really was,
Which
because
was?
when they get angry, you can't hold the emotional level of matter, right? So I was making him very angry, and all of a sudden, this big white dragon looking thing, I was just like, you know, remember, I didn't know anything about others really, you know, at the time, nothing, you know, I just knew demon, kill it, right? So I was pretty good at that point with the ether, right? And it can be used as a weapon, can also be used to save you, can be used to shield you, does many, many things that humans will, I hope in the very near future, all learn how to do, right?
Sure.
It's like our white magic, I guess you would say, because it's source is energy.
Yes.
So, okay. So anyway, so it went down. So I assumed I killed it. I found out later it was like a coma of some sort, and they said that he would be back. And I was like, okay. So the other two were very scared at that point because of what happened. And Putin never came to this second part. Now, I did meet Putin face to face a couple times prior to this. You know, he's still a spook. I mean, the guy's a spook. He still acts like a spook. He walks like a spook. He talks like a spook.
Okay,
He's a
but
Russian
this is
spook,
again the clone, right?
not a clone at that point. No,
Oh,
he didn't
okay.
actually die until 2015.
Okay, but I thought we were in, I thought you were, this all happened in 2015, no?
Well, Putin was gone, right? So what happens is
When
with
you
it,
supposedly killed what you thought was a
Marduk,
demon, Marduk.
just Marduk,
What?
just Marduk.
Okay, but I'm thinking that you said there were two guys in the room. One of them was that not Putin?
No, Zinke and Enlil, uncle and grandfather.
Okay, and so they stood by and you kind of killed, or well, you did
I
a
knocked it
blow. You
out.
gave a blow to knocked
It
out
was like
Mark.
in a coma, and then I felt bad about it.
You did, but how did they feel?
Shocked. They just looked shocked,
Okay,
and that
so they
was
didn't think you had that kind of power. All
yeah.
right, and so then Putin, but you were in Russia, right? This is in Russia. So,
Mm-hmm.
but Putin wasn't in that meeting. Is
No,
that
he was, I was supposed to, this was like probably on a Wednesday or Thursday, and he was supposed to come on, he used to only come on Saturday nights. So I was supposed to be there this whole time. And we were all going to be singing Kumbaya, so they thought, right? And then they were going to bring him in. And then there was going to be some kind of a ceremony, they said, and all this. I didn't believe any of this stuff, really. Honestly, I didn't at this point. I didn't even believe anything they said. There were way too many inconsistencies at that. And I started learning, right? So I went there with in an attempt to confront them, because there was, I mean, I would go find a box, right? Like one of these special boxes. All of a sudden, there's rumors on the internet about Putin taking the Ark of the Covenant from Saudi Arabia. Do you remember that in the news? It was like in alt media, and then for a while. But anyway, it's probably still out there. But it was me that found it. It was me that went there. The one that's in St. Petersburg, it was me that found that one, right? Nobody had, there's 7 of these things, right? And after the third one, after they took them all, I stopped looking. So,
okay. Was there a motivation to find the boxes? Is there some kind of, prophecy associated with the number of boxes? And if you find them all, then something happens? I mean, is this the motivation in finding it?
no. No, it's a very long story. Let's just put it this way to you.
All right.
There's been many spells on the planet, right? Energy magic, as they call it, energy binding. Money is an energy binder. Triangles, shapes to bind your person top to bottom, where there's always an interruption, soul traps, soul catching. And that's what these are. And there was another one that was up on a ship. So there's one in the United States. They broke it. So there's a few of them around.
Okay, so 2015 is relatively recent. And are you trying to say that you really still weren't that aware of kind of the structure of, the whole game, let's say? But
Yep.
now you do a wonderful presentation about the structure. So you've obviously educated yourself. So how did you do that? Were you
Okay. So
by them,
after
or did
this,
you do it on your
after
own?
this meeting happened, they didn't want to meet me in person again. We were talking on the phone. I was like, are we having this meeting this weekend or what? What's going on? Everybody was scared at that point. And then they told me, just wait, be patient. You have to wait until September. Now I know why I would have had to wait until September. I'm like, look, I need money. The world needs money. We need to start transferring this money. If I'm the trustee, then, we need to get it moving. Right. So they stopped answering the phone. They told me they were going to a meeting, and which was the others meeting I have been discussing recently. I didn't know that at the time. So they would
Okay,
go.
now I'm thinking this others meeting must have to do with uh, other beings from other planets.
Well, yeah, they were too, right? They're not from here.
Sure,
They've been here for
they're
thousands
on
of
an
years.
Anunnaki, but aside from them, when you say the others, I'm assuming you mean other than the Anunnaki, other than them. So the others would be other beings from, because at some point I was going to ask you, obviously, if you know the story of this planet, you know what's going on, then there are lots of races of beings that have tried to come in here, manipulate our genome, and have wars with each other, and that
Yeah,
the Anunnaki think they run the place, but they're not completely in control.
that is correct. They were partners with 2 other groups. They were
Okay.
partners with the Abraxas and the Mantids. Now, the original race of planet Earth are the Saurans, right? Either Saurans or Raptors. They kind of look like
Okay. Raptors, well, okay, that's one race, but yeah, okay.
very nice folks.
Mhm.
Good people. I mean,
Working with our military right now.
no,
No?
nope, nope.
Okay. The Raptors.
Yeah.
Okay. And so,
The
okay.
others have no others on planet Earth, here or abroad, right? Have any contact with any of those people, not Trump, not any of those people anymore. That ended in 2019. They called it September, what is it? The equinox, the fall equinox. They called it, declared it Independence Day in 2019. And they are the ones that got rid of all the dumbs and the connections, anything below level 6, which is where they would have inhabited. Level 6 was like a double spot.
Meaning the
Like,
Raptors. When you say they,
not only them, we have 36 other races other than the mantids, the Draco, and the Abraxas that hang out
Okay,
there.
and so when you're saying they, are you talking about 36 races got rid of the dumbs, or because I just want to get
They right. So after the Draco's expiration, right, in 2016, at least not the whole race. They still their planet. Anno didn't die until 2019. And then the queen took over, and she's actually a little bit more normal, not so focused on trying to dominate the entire multiverse, that's for sure. So she so once their influence, I should say, here went away, deals were made with the mantids, and the Abraxas are still horrible people. They're like, if you could imagine the worst silver spoon baby royal person on television that you've ever seen in your life, that's those people. They're so entitled to everything.
Okay, but what is their actual race of
They're
being?
humanoid.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they're calling them, they call themselves the Abraxas.
That's
Okay,
their name. Yeah.
all right, fine. Okay,
That's their
so
family name.
just to get back to we're kind of like at 2015, 2016, and this is certainly when Trump comes into office. So you made a remark saying that he was chosen after Putin was kind of set aside, and then Trump was chosen. Am I not
No,
under,
well, Putin failed to achieve his objective, right?
which was what?
He was supposed to control the golden goose.
Which is what?
Me. The system.
Okay, you're
Yeah, with the
you
system.
sort of the keys to the money or whatever.
Well, not it's much more than money.
Okay,
That AI system, which has
all
been
right.
completely reprogrammed, but it contains a lot. But as far as his job was to make me happy and to control me, that was his job. That was his only job.
So he was replaced by Trump.
In the savior programming.
I
Yeah.
understand, but okay, so was Trump's next job to keep you happy?
No, 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 no. Wasn't
Okay,
like that.
so
No, no,
maybe
no, no, no,
like,
not at all. We have had many conversations. I wouldn't say I know him personally, but
but you have
we've
talked to him on the phone. Is that what you're saying?
and the diplomatic line. Yeah.
Okay. So you've talked with Trump. So Trump, I'm just curious, how did this situation with Putin and Trump, how did they bring Trump in? So what was that
Okay.
dynamic?
In 1998, Trump met with what they refer to as an ascended master. Okay. They told him he was going to be president. That was all, right? They told him that he was going to do all these amazing things for the world. That's what they told him. Now, an ascended master in our world, right, on the internet, alternative media means a very nice person that's enlightened, right? That connects with the
In
creator
theory,
source.
yes.
Okay, well, in their world, that is a coven master.
Okay.
Okay. Trump is always born into being the black sun. Don't think any otherwise. I know you don't want to believe this. People hate this, but it's true.
No,
Right? John
okay, well,
Trump was Project Paperclip.
we can get into that. But let's stay with this so-called master. So this is a master, what I would call a master magician. Is this person ascended in any way, or are they just a commonplace human, or what?
Very good at black magic.
Okay, so a
Um,
master magician
yeah, I would say that,
of the
yes.
dark side, and this is who Trump met with, who said you're going to be president. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
And that was in '98.
hmm They told him
Okay,
he was going
and
to be
then
president and he could be the master of this timeline, which only had a 17% chance of actually potentially happening, right? So he thinks he goes through life doing these things and thinks that he's going to be the president. And he became the president, right? So that part was true. But what happened is they need to have someone play the role of the savior. Okay. Create the problem and be the solution. That's how
sure.
you create a savior.
Mhm.
So when Putin started falling out of favor with his colleagues, now Trump and Putin are both a member of the Black Sun. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about the Black Sun and how one becomes a member of that.
Um, Most of it is family lines. It's
Are you
headed
saying, and this goes back to Nazi Germany? Is that what you're
in the
talking
Abraxas.
about?
Hmm.
And the Abraxas. Okay. So in theory, this should go back to the Aldebaran, the beings from Aldebaran.
I'm not familiar with that.
All right. Well, they were the ones that
Oh,
Marie
Aldebaran.
Gorsuch
I
dealt
say
with.
Aldebaran.
Oh
Yes,
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Aldebaran. Sorry. Yes,
Gorsuch
my
deals with.
apologies.
Okay. No, no worries. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong.
My
That's
American
all right.
English.
Whatever. But okay. So these beings and so going back to, you call them the order, or they call themselves Order of Black Sun. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there's lots been written about this organization and various things. But to talk specifically about Trump, so you're saying he's a descendant of someone in that group, right? Is he the son, or the, of who? And I know some people are saying General Patton, but is this correct, or is this
His
incorrect?
father was a member. Um,
Right.
their original family line is von Kief or von Kempf,
Okay.
was the original family line. Some say that the Black Sun was born in Ukraine, which is why there's a big focus on Ukraine. There was a giant portal to everything that is evil there, that's for sure.
Yes, there's a
Um,
mountain there actually.
yeah.
That would be the portal. And I've talked about that with one of my whistleblowers and in my interviews. So, because
Mm-hmm.
I was fascinated on why they kept bringing up Ukraine every second, not so much now, but a few years ago when they just kept, they were trying to have
No,
conversations there.
yesterday, the
Sorry?
US government, Biden made a commitment to fund $277
Again,
billion dollars
and
yesterday.
Biden has a whole relationship with, obviously, the evil, whatever, maybe you're calling it the Black Sun, that are running that mountain. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and the beings,
Okay,
somebody, some,
so these are the beings from Aldebaran, and you say it a little differently than I.
I
Yes?
I would say they have a working relationship. I would say that the others call the being that runs the what you would call the underworld or the dark side of the multiverse, or the Black Sun, which is the equal and opposite to our sun on the other side. Okay.
Okay, that
Um,
parallel Earth.
right. So the multiverse would look like this side would be white and this side would be dark in the past. It's not like that now. And the ruler of this side would be the dark overlord, one who needs to destroy in order to create. That is
Okay,
why the Black Sun worships death, so that they can get favor and bring some of these folks onto planet Earth.
yeah.
Now, why we're called Midgard is because we are right on the line between the two, and they destroyed everybody else that was right in this section in the third dimension. So we were one of the last inhabited planets right between the two.
Okay, and just for my viewers, obviously the TV show Fringe was was talking about this. So,
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so,
okay, well,
but
the scientist
could
goes
be.
over to get his son because his son dies on this side. He goes over on the other side to get his son back,
Oh, okay.
brings him back over to this side. So, and there have been counterpart, and there's been several, movies and TV shows kind of using this theme. So, okay, so when you're saying Trump is descended from that family line,
Mhm.
basically. And he was told that he was going to be, sort of the savior figure, and indeed, in some ways, it would seem that that's kind of been rolling out, but then it seems to have fallen into difficult times, let's say, in the last, well, ever since, he lost the election, I guess you might say, but maybe even before that. So let's talk about that. So Putin kind of was set aside, right? And so you were no longer dealing directly with Putin so much, you were dealing with Trump.
Our last conversation was the, Babylon System 5.0 they were trying to launch. in
Which is a what? Is that a satellite or a planet or what?
if you follow the revaluations of currency, they've talked about many versions of a system before they started talking about QFS,
Okay.
right? So at that time, it was the Babylon system is going to revaluate the currencies, right? So I met, okay, I'll make this as quick as because we could talk for hours
I know,
telling the
I know.
story.
I
But
appreciate that.
I met, so after and these people weren't calling me back, I met another group of others there who are what you would call the short grays, I guess you would call them.
Okay, yeah.
And they are computer and financial experts. And
Right.
so I was like, well, what am I going to do now?
Basically
I
representing
need
the
to get,
AI.
I need to get into the system. Oh, you think that they're AI, you
Oh,
said?
yeah, they definitely are. They're
Really?
motivated and yeah, under orders
They have,
from AI. Yeah, basically.
I've seen one of them in a med bed who almost died.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So they seem to be very nice, very friendly. I mean,
Okay.
still are to this day. If they are AI, they're nice AI, I guess. I don't know. I
Sure.
never asked that question. I watched the guy bleed, so I assumed,
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you're not, whatever. Go ahead. So let's
All
continue.
right. So I meet these guys, and they said, well, you don't need them, right? We have the key. We have the other key, right? Now, according to them, their planet, right, from Zeta, something or other, right, and they were brought here as slaves to manage the system for M.
Okay.
So manage this part of the system, right, to create a number of different programs that would work. They were much more adept at that system. Now, the mantids were actually the creator of the technology in the first place. And it did not only exist here, it existed everywhere.
Okay.
So
Are we talking about Looking Glass? Or are you talking about the QFS?
no, I'm talking about an actual quantum system. So
Okay.
the system does work on the etheric level of matter. It does a lot of different things, manages Stargate, Starnet. Financial is just one aspect, telecommunication systems, military and intelligence systems. It was the base by which our computer systems exist. So without that system, we would have no computers in this world. We would have
Okay.
no programming.
Okay. So you met with them, and what was the purpose of your
They
meeting?
told me that they would help me. They said they don't want to work with military and intelligence anymore because they've done nothing but use them and lie to them. They promised them that they would be free, and that they were all working towards their freedom from the Draco, because the Draco had destroyed mostly their world, and they were taken as slaves into different locations to do different jobs. Now, with the other races here, who I started to meet over time, right? But they were the first ones. So it was right after the Harvest Moon order crazy ceremony thing that I finally started to learn the system. Was
Okay. What
about
year again?
we're still in 2015.
Okay. All right. So you became introduced to the Zeta.
Yeah.
You met with them, and they
Yeah.
told you they wanted to work with you. Now,
They told me they would help me in an agreement that, remember, most of these other folks that are here, that live here, that this is their home, right? They don't like humans very much. Between the Abraxas, the Galactic Federation, who hasn't been known to be the best of folks in the world to them, and of course us, right? I
and
mean,
well, okay, are you talking about the beings from inner Earth? Because you can't leave them out either, right?
yeah, I'm talking about the ones that live here. Yes.
Okay.
Some people say it's inner Earth. I would say that, and this is a whole nother story, right? So Inner Earth was ruled by what you would call the destroyer. So he would be considered, if the dark overlord would be Lucifer, that this guy would be considered Satan's right-hand guy or son that crashed into here 1.5 million years ago. There was a war. I'm trying to very quickly. So what they did in order to not destroy this planet like they did Tiamat, right? The enforcer, which runs the UPU or Universal Protection Unit, he created the planes of existence on this planet. So
Okay.
it's like an energy binding thing. So he couldn't go above a certain level. So he was kind of stuck in there until he went away in December of 2019. He was,
Okay.
they finally killed him.
Okay, now that's a I'm sure it's an interesting story, but so that we don't get off track here, just in.
I know, I'm trying not to, but I'm trying, when you say that they live in Inner Earth, I
Well,
would tell
okay,
you
so
there's a
what do
whole
you know,
world that exists
are you
there.
saying you want to say other dimensions? You want to say,
It's here,
yeah,
they live here, but in multiple dimensions and planes of existence, because their frequencies are very different than ours, right?
yes.
Very different than the Dracos.
Okay, so just quickly, are you familiar with, you know, Caesar, the guy that calls himself Caesar, who's head of, maybe, I don't know if you know, the Romanian Sphinx and the underground caverns that they discovered. And you know, basically they can go into these areas of inner earth, actually passing through. And they have tunnels that go all the way, to Iraq and to
That's true.
Egypt and so and so. So this is what we're talking about, okay?
Yeah,
This
that's
is
true.
the
To
entrances.
answer your question, 100% yes. Like I said, below level 6 is where 6 was kind of like a place where humans and the others would interact.
Mhm.
Anything above that would have been all humans, and then anything below that would have been all others.
Right.
And that's where the dumbs came in. That's what a dumb is, right?
Sure.
But that,
Okay.
yes, they live a whole nother world. They have a central sun, which is the
Yeah.
vortex of the ether in the center of the world. I mean,
Right. And
there's an
Shambhala
entryway down the street from here. It's not far.
also, but Shambhala also relates to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but to get back to the subject here, so you're dealing with a group of Zeta who now suddenly are kind of handling the orchestration of the system, right? Which is in essence the
They
QFS.
helped me learn it. Yes.
Okay. And they said they want to work with you, and in theory, not with Trump, not with the
Oh, this
military
was
secret space program.
no.
Yes.
Well, yeah, no. Like I said, they were slaves here of the Draco, to which
Right.
everyone else reported. Trump, Black Sun, and otherwise, they were
Right.
like, yeah, what do you consider the lord of the planet at the time?
Okay. All
Not
right.
the
So
owner, but the lord. Yeah.
you're calling, okay, well, you're calling who the Lord?
I would say that they were like if you were considered the king to be the owner, right, of the kingdom, then you would consider the lord of the manor, right, to
Be the
be,
lower
yeah, like a
administrator.
lower ranking, but all over that land, he's in charge, right?
Right?
And
But
I would,
that's a typical sort of gray way
no,
of,
no, 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 no,
you're
no.
talking
That's
about
at the time you're speaking of, that would
Zetas.
have been the Draco, right?
The Draco are the Lord, or the Draco are the
The
king?
Draco would have been the lord of the manor here.
Oh, so okay, so above the Draco is the,
Yeah, all these other folks that we're about to talk about would have been considered at the time slaves until Independence Day.
okay, but who's above the Draco in your view?
I would say that the Abraxas are the ones that hired them as the military force. The Mantids came in with the technology. They made a deal on the loosh farming, and that's how we became cattle.
Okay. And who's above the Abraxas and the Mantids?
The Braxis I know had a relationship with the Dark Overlord. Then we have a universal council that is not a master of all. They are a consortium of all. So
Okay, so what Ashiana Dean would call the Guardians.
I
Are you
don't,
familiar with her work?
I'm not.
Okay.
I would say they are heavily
you're
vested.
calling something called the Universal Council, and this is what you're saying you're a member of, right?
I'm an ambassador.
Okay. So who are you saying the Universal Council is? That's a kind of a consortium or a group of races. Is that right?
I
I
would
call them
say
races, beings, whatever you want to call them, right?
I would say that if you were to take a representative of every inhabited rock in the multiverse, you would then have the overall Universal Council. And then you have a bench in the front, right? And then there's a commentator lady. And depending on why you're there, this would be considered court. If there was a violation of an agreement or a treaty or whatnot, this is where you would go as it relates to relations with other planets and other races.
Okay, and just to, for people that are kind of trying to visualize this, are any of these beings above 60,
60?
60,
Oh,
60
yes.
dimensional?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh,
So
yes.
so because going above the Draco, you're going up to a level of guardian races, but you're not talking about necessarily beings that have to manifest in a body, right? So some are light beings, what would be known as loosely light beings, beings that
Yeah.
don't ever have to
Well,
materialize unless they feel like it.
we as human souls do not need a vessel either, just so you're aware.
I am aware of that.
Yeah.
But
So
what I'm saying,
the Arcturians, as an example,
in other
Arcturians
words,
are like
they're above
blue.
60. Well, the way it kind of works is, depending on how you think about it, is that the beings that go from 60 and above can choose to manifest in a body, but they don't have to in order
Right.
to engage in this game, so to
Right.
speak. Okay. So we're talking about when you're talking about, court and so on, are you going, okay, let's not even get into all
Yeah.
that.
Just in brief, just to give you brief, the Arcturians,
Yes.
they are blue light. They are natural healers. They are a light body,
Sure.
essentially.
Okay. So, and the Pleiadians, where do you place them?
You have a few different groups from the Pleiadian system. The Red Queen that everybody talks about, she literally looks like a Gila monster face kind of thing, a very nice female body. Hates me, I hate her. It's mutual. She's awful, like she's a dictator, right? So, and then you have other groups from the humanoids from the Pleiadian system and whatnot. So it's hard to say, like, well, we hate all the people from the Banana
Okay.
Republic. You can't really say
Well,
that.
it is said that some of the Pleiadians are definitely 60 and above.
I would say that the humanoid version would be probably 7. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, let's get back to Trump and the Black Sun and that whole thing. Because really, what I want to do is bring it to because we're in DEF time. I said, before we started, we're in DEF CON 2,
Yeah.
and that
And I
has
did
to
confirm
mean
that while we
something.
were on the call, by the way. Yeah.
Sorry?
I did confirm that
Yes.
while we
Okay.
were on the call.
And Wano Savin has stated this in an interview he did yesterday with, Nino Rodriguez. And so I went and researched it, and it does appear that's correct. And someone else had done a show. I think it's what does he call it? SGT Network, whatever that is. Stu, I think it's Stu. Forget his last name. Anyway, sorry about that. But at any rate, yes, it's a definite. So that means, and I've got a definition on my website for those of you watching. You can go quickly to the front page and you'll see that I say we're now in DEF CON 2. And that basically means the military is ready to go and fight in 6 hours or less. So it's a rather sort of drastic position to be in if you want to, because we were in 3 for a very long time, it seemed like. Okay, so just to bring back, because we want to bring it back to
It
Trump.
also does something else.
What?
It also does something else.
Okay, what does it do?
There's an entire underground system in Texas, which is the backup for the financial system of the United States. And when we get below a DEFCON 3, they fire up that system and everything moves from the Treasury, Fed, so on and so forth to that system.
Okay.
That's why they did it.
So
they're trying to take control over the financial system of the United States is what they're trying to do.
Now, when
and this is the deep state military.
The deep state military is trying to do this.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you consider the deep state military as under Trump or not?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. General Milley works with Trump. Flynn, Trump wanted to leave office. He had to leave office in order to do the crimes against humanity that he's doing now. As you know, the Space Force is running the White House. Biden is underground on life support. That is a person in a mask. Usually General Hyten takes that role.
Trump is in control of both sides. That's in essence what you're saying.
I'm sorry, say again?
You believe Trump is in control of both sides, what we would consider, when we say deep state, just, in let's say, in terms of patriot speak, okay? They say deep state and they consider them the enemy, okay, on the one hand. So that's in theory.
I do too, by the way.
Sorry?
I do too.
You say deep state is the enemy, okay.
Yeah.
But Trump, in theory, is supposed to be fighting the deep state. Is that an illusion?
That is an illusion.
Okay, and how do you kind of substantiate that?
Because I have phone records, I have conversations at the White House. I know for a fact he wanted to leave the White House. That is a fact. I know that Don Jr., when he turned the age of 40, he left the White House, okay, as a martyr, right? Oh, poor me, fake election, fake news, fake this, fake that. He's right. He actually won the election. It took a lot of work for his partner, Bill Gates at Microsoft, to manipulate the Dominion servers in the Azure system to make it like he lost.
Okay. My understanding is that is a little different than that. So
I
bear
know.
with me. So what we have been told is that the Dominion servers were actually, under the purview of the CIA, that they went into a safe house in Germany, that they took them over, that it was actually Biden that stole the election and that Trump won 80-20, let's say.
He did win. Legitimately.
And that then what happened was that they had a blockchain. They have a blockchain record of the actual vote, so they didn't have to go through this dog and pony show that had to do with showing how people voted literally. But aside from that, that Trump left on purpose, yes, but the reason he left ostensibly is because he wanted to prevent a civil war, because the people are not on the side of Trump. They think that they chose Biden and they think he won. Now we understand that the military, for example, was sworn in Trump because they looked at the records and they saw he legitimately won. So
at 8:06 a.m. the day of the inauguration. Yep.
Actually March 11th, according to 107.
Martial law officially went into effect in March.
Okay, well, maybe you're not aware of that little piece of information.
Trump signed the order for martial law and for the Space Force to take over the White House on at 8:06 a.m. right prior to his departure up from when he was coming. Remember, he was late coming out to the platform to say goodbye the day. Yes, that's the time he signed that order.
Okay, so you believe that he was already inaugurated by the military at that point?
No, he was not inaugurated at all. He declared martial law, which put the military in charge.
Okay. As of was that the 6th? I don't know. Was it actually the 6th of
the inauguration was when he said goodbye and left the White House, and then they did the fake Biden show. That was on the 20th of January, right?
Oh, it was. Okay. So
Yeah.
20th of January. So this date, I'm just saying the date of March 11th, because it was supposed to be a reverse, of the date of 3/11 being, no, 11/3 being the vote, and then 3/11 being him being um, uh,
The
acknowledged as
militaries of the
commander
world
in chief.
decided to declare global martial law in March of, let me see, 2020. Okay. They
Okay,
have
well,
a
that's while
system.
Trump's still in office.
While he was still in office, they
So he's
wanted
the
to declare
commander in chief
martial
at that
law.
point.
Now, if you know these people, they only do things on an equinox, right? Or a solar, whatever you call that. Yeah. So March 20th is the day. That's the spring equinox. That's the
Okay,
first
but
day of the
that
new
was in
year in their world.
2020. I'm talking about 2021. So after
And
Biden
I'll
was
get there
elected.
for you. I'll get there. So all of those systems go through the AVILP4 system, and they expected, now that they declared martial law, it was never ratified in the Hall of Records, right? So it was never approved. And on top of all that, it rings my system. It rings the system I run, right? So the AVILP4, which is the military financial system, they kept hitting the button. So I let them sit there for a couple of days, and then I finally answered. This is Commander Kim Goguen. What would you? How can I assist you? And then nobody answered me back. At least not the U.S. They were expecting someone else, others, or someone, but it was me. So then, fast forward a year later, we go through this tumultuous election and whatnot. Well, Trump also signed an order for martial law. That is what gave the power for the Space Force to take over the White House. Okay. Run
Okay,
by
and that,
John Raymond. Yeah.
okay, and that is when?
That was January 20th, when during the inauguration. I might have the day off by 20th, 21st, or
All
whatever.
right,
He's
fair enough.
8:06 a.m. If you got CIA people, military people, that is the exact time he signed that order on his way to the platform. 8:06 a.m.
Okay.
Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, so at that point, it put the United States on under military law, martial laws, as you're saying,
Yeah.
and that was also when Biden, the puppet, basically was put into place, right? He became the so-called figurehead.
Yeah.
But so this whole sort of dog and pony show that's going on right now, to some degree, is orchestrated, then you're saying, by Trump, correct? And his team.
Correct. And the plan of the deep state at that time was to stage it as to blow up the platform during the ceremony. That was stopped by Homeland Security, bomb squad, by the way.
To blow up what platform?
It was all a stage. So,
Okay,
the
but
inauguration platform.
where Biden was being inaugurated on the 6th?
Yes.
We're back on the 6th. Okay.
Yes. And they were going to blow up this platform, and then he would have never been inaugurated. And, Trump was going to go back up in, but until there was a pivotal moment. Okay. On Friday, before this inauguration ceremony, right? Maybe it was like right around the election. I don't think the election results had been decided just yet. Trump was promised by this Richard Weiss guy, on his website, senatusconsultum.eu. He was promised he would get a higher position in the order than president if he threw the election. So he agreed. This would have been right before Election Day. Okay, because I remember this now. So he agreed not to. And then they told him after he threw the election that he wasn't worthy of the position, which is a very common thing they do. You did not pass the test. You're not worthy of the position.
Okay. Well, it sounds like he's not in charge then. Who's that he's reporting to?
The Black Sun.
So they had, in one hand, said they were going to give him, he would throw the election. He
Yep.
did what they said, and then he was going to get a higher position. What higher position would there be than President of the United States?
Many, many higher. The order is way higher
I know,
than,
but for the purposes of my audience,
positions like in covens, Pindar positions, dragon family positions, the people that really run this country, the deep state's position. For example, he was promised he would be the black dragon or the black sun head of North America, which would basically make him the king of America and Canada in their world.
Okay, so so just so we have this straight, because I want to make sure that my audience understands you, and so that kind of goes through me also. So what you're saying is that because, the Patriots believe firmly that he is against, in essence, what is in essence become, some people call it the Fourth Reich, what has descended on our country and in fact the world at this point, which is this kind of Nazi, way of running the countries. Okay, so at the present time, the way Trump is sort of drawn to be is he and his team, Q and all of this, are fighting the good fight for our freedom against the deep state, and you're saying he's working with them.
Yes.
Okay, and for them, basically. Okay.
Was born into it, yes.
Right. Okay, so then who is working against them?
You, me,
I mean, I know
the people,
yes.
light workers,
Okay, but is there any other, that's it? I mean,
others
why?
are against them.
Okay, and why does it appear? Okay, so let's kind of drill down, because a lot of people want to know, okay, why does Trump back the vaxes? And when even Robert Kennedy, I guess you heard those disclosures, Robert Kennedy came forward, Jr., and said, he met with Trump right when Trump was going into office. Trump told him then that he was anti-vax and that he wouldn't vaccinate his children. That's in the discussion. That's actually public record.
Okay.
And then whether it's true or not is another matter. But, that's what he told Robert Kennedy. And that then he said he was going to give him a position in his government. He was going to come out against the vax or whatever. And then all that switched supposedly after he got a donation of $1 million from Pfizer. That was the disclosure, a week or two ago of Robert Kennedy Jr., for example, about what happened in a negotiation with Trump. So you think, in other words, and my understanding as, sort of a member loosely of the Patriots, okay, that Trump and his team, 107, John F. Kennedy Jr., et cetera, are all working to stop the vaxes. And you're saying they're working for the vaxes. They want people to be linked up to the Borg, and is all an act. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. But he's using the face of Biden to throw him under the bus. Now, Trump, if you remember, has been promoting vaxes for the last 6 months he was in office.
Absolutely. And even to this day.
Right. So now think about what you said right there. Okay. So you mentioned 107, right? CIA, admittedly, right? Charlie Ward is a Trump fan, MI6. Michael Yako, also a Trump fan, reports Trump is God.
Oh, Jacob. Yeah. Okay.
Yako, sorry, Yako. Also CIA, right? All of them still have a handler, for sure, 100%. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, the CIA was founded by Skull and Bones.
Right.
The symbol for death. The Black Sun worships death. Mm-hmm. You can find that on the internet.
Okay, so you don't believe there's been any member of our government or, try to basically fighting on the side of good. You think they're all in it together. They're all, both Democrats and Republicans are all deep state, and they're all in the same game.
I would say for the most part, on the upper echelon of government, anybody in a position of authority, I would say definitely is. Pelosi is also a member, so you can go both sides. Clintons, we know, are a member, right?
So this antipathy that appears to be going on between these groups is actually an act.
Well, I would tell you that it would have been an act until a pivotal change point, okay? Mm-hmm. There was a 3,000-year covenant between the Black Sun and the Sanhedrin Council, which would be the coven on the other side, okay? The covenant was the Black Sun would act as security for the temple, right?
All right, but let's talk about the Sanhedrin because you brought them up in the past. And we also, in a sense, there, are you talking about the Jewish billionaires? You're talking about the Jewish, rabbis, etc. Is this what
The
going back to?
people, the people that would consider themselves the line of Solomon,
Mhm.
therefore the rulers of the temple. Okay.
Who are Jewish mainly, or call themselves Jewish, even though they're Khazarians.
They call themselves Jewish, yes.
Okay.
They reside predominantly in London, be back and forth. These would be the people that would have been over the public families you see, like Rothschild, and
Yes.
these would be telling them what to do. Yes.
Okay. So, okay, so now let's go back to where you were with talking about what the Sanhedrins, when they were in charge before the Black Sun, are you saying the Black Sun group used
They
to
would have been considered
guard the
with the
temples, now they're in charge of them? I mean, is this what you're?
yeah, the Sanhedrin would have been considered a partner of the Draco, a spawn, hybrids is what
Right.
they call themselves. They're aliens and gods, they told me once, right? So that's your dragon family masters. These would be the dragon families would be underneath these people. So on the other side, you had the Order of the Black Sun, which were supposed to be security. The covenant was that they would be security for the Sanhedrin. So these were the agencies, the militaries, these were, the Vril farms, all the things that all that came underneath their tutelage, so to speak, until the covenant was broken 3,000 years later, which happened to be in December of 2018, from the 2nd through the 7th, which was Hanukkah that year, which is the celebration of the building of the second temple by the demons for Solomon, right? 3,000 years later, the covenant broke. That's it, right? So they had been preparing for a few years prior because they felt that they were the doers everywhere. I mean, these were the ones in the banks. These were the ones running the agencies and militaries. These guys are they've got presidents. So they started installing their own heads of state taking out, this is your Earth Alliance everybody talks about. Okay. So I know that's sad, but it's true. So anyway, these people started installing their own people everywhere and calling outwardly the Rothschilds the bad guys, right? That's the deep state. Look here, the Clintons are the deep state, but not here. We're the good guys. We're saving the planet. But meanwhile, they are the ones that created COVID-19. Dr. Mengel's son, his code name at the CIA is the Mummy. Okay. He's still conjuring up diseases to kill off the population constantly. There was labs in Paraguay on the Bush Ranch. We know that Bush was Black Sun. So was Kennedy, just so you know. So I know it's true. So the fight has always been who will rule first, right? So Kennedy was fighting the Fed, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Treasury of USA was always controlled by the Black Sun by agreement. And the Fed was always the Rothschild or the Sanhedrins, right? Two sides.
Right.
So Trump wanted to take over the Fed, which at the end of 2000, by the end of 2018, the fight was on in full swing. They knew they were no longer bound to the Sanhedrin anymore. So they both started fighting each other then for world domination. Who was going to run the world? Klaus is Black Sun. His wife is Rothschild, right? This happens a lot. Clinton was Black Sun. Hillary is Rothschild. So they intermarry a lot throughout history.
Okay, but in theory, you're talking about them sort of being enemies.
Not until 2018 when the covenant was broken.
Okay.
Then they became enemies, but they were setting it up the whole time behind their back.
Uh-huh. Okay. And okay, so fair enough. And so let's now talk about COVID and the whole plan to roll out this, what was supposed to be the QFS, which is just revealing the actual financial system as it exists, you're saying, in the quantum. that had already been in place, right? Is this
No,
no?
nope,
Because you said that well,
no.
according to what you have said earlier,
The
the
quant.
system was already in existence throughout the multiverse, in fact.
Oh yes, and that's the one that I work with. And like I said, I have people that help and others that
Okay, so
help.
you don't think they're revealing that system? You think they're
No,
revealing another
they have
system?
no control. They have no access to that system. Both sides are gone out of there and have been for years. M locked them out before me in 2007, March of 2007 to be exact,
But it would seem that they would be working with M. Why would M lock them out?
because they were going to crash his masterpiece. And he had already acquired everything he ever wanted. So he had the deed basically to every mineral that's worth anything on this planet. He had ownership over all of us as Loosh. He didn't need them anymore. They're just slave masters. He was just using them. He has no value for people.
Okay, so, but to get back to the COVID thing, because there's an interesting thing that's gone on in which they talk about they had to roll out COVID to take down the monetary system, to bankrupt everyone basically and lock them in their houses. I mean, it's kind of like doesn't make logical sense, but I'm talking about their rationale, okay?
If you had
People
access to
on
the,
the pedestals, that are talking pundits like, Charlie Ward and Juan O'Savin and various people
okay,
have been out saying they had to take down the system in order to bring in something new. And the something new is supposed to be called QFS. Okay. So what's your understanding of this?
okay, let's take a few minutes. Do you have a few minutes to talk about this? Because I think this is important
Yes.
for people to understand. We're
Yeah,
all
I'm
intelligent
why not?
people, right? And we can think through this. So we had, if you are following the QFS sites, right? We had the Babylon system. That was like the first name they gave it. And then we had the talk of the Hercules system, right? Then we had talk about Prometheus, right? So it's been system after system after system they keep calling quantum. But let me tell you where COVID ties into this, right? I did this on our channel, but I'll go over it very
Like a
briefly.
short version, and then we could get a
Okay.
longer version
So
on.
when the last system, the Starlink system that Elon Musk was working on died about a year ago, okay, they had to come up with another system because it's just been one after the other. None of these are quantum in any way. So, meaning they have no capability of mapping information from multiple dimensions, okay, multiple layers of matter. So, a real quantum system can map organic and inorganic life, okay, not just by personality type, but from an etherical level, okay. So, I'll just leave it very slightly at that so you understand. Okay, so in walks the last one was the Azure system, right? So Microsoft builds this big, huge cloud system, which they launched, I think about a year and a half ago or something like that right now. And what does it do? Okay, so it is a very large database and it does process information. But if you remember, they were offering $100,000 if you put your company onto Azure, test it out. So if you go onto the internet right now and you start Googling things like Bank of America, Azure, Federal Reserve, Azure, and you start going through and you Google it, you'll see the date of the contract that they signed. Blue Cross Blue Shield is on Azure. Okay. Other United Healthcare is on Azure. Century something or other is on Azure. The Access Healthcare system, the Medicare system is on Azure. So who runs Azure? Well, we know that this is Bill Gates, right? Okay. We're going to talk about Cuomo. This is just the United States. Now, Azure also runs many other things. So if you go through, you'll see they signed contracts for all our control of our waterways and irrigation systems. Okay. My spelling's terrible, irrigation. Okay, irrigation systems. And then they also signed contracts with the electric grid. Okay. All of this is now run by electronics. Okay. So the database all went into the Azure cloud server system, but it's bigger than that. Okay. So you talked about turning us all into Borgs, right? That's what the vaccines are supposed to do.
Right.
Okay. You're right. But it goes, we would all live under what's called a social credit system. So you have a credit score that talks about how you pay your bills and how you do this and that, right? And it tells you, well, you can get a credit card or not. But a social credit system monitors every move you make. So they sign contracts with virtually every bank in the world, major bank anyway. They also sign contracts with all health insurance companies.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that Bill Gates is, in theory, under arrest and working for Trump.
He's not
Now,
under arrest, but he's definitely working with Trump because they made a deal. This is where your switch about the vaccine 6 months before he left office came in. Okay. Bill Gates is also Black Sun. Bill Gates is like Dr. Mangle Jr. He's
right.
Paranoid. He's constantly, because he knows about the
Everyone is
labs.
aware of that. Okay.
Always been partners, always worked from the same society. Okay.
Okay. Now,
all right. So think about this for 1 second.
Go ahead. Okay.
I'll be brief, right? So, and then you've got the vaccines with nanobots. So if you have the banks, you get control over debit, credit card systems, all electronic money, health insurance, Epic systems. They'll know whether or not you went to the gym, whether you have friends that were in jail previously, because all those systems moved over there. And they would gauge whether you were a worthy human in society and how much money you could have or couldn't have. They could shut you off at any time. You wouldn't be able to get food. So it's total control.
Right. And everyone knows that. Okay. At this point. Yeah. They know the plan. This is, the diabolical.
That's your QFS.
Okay, fine. So now you're saying that somehow this system that they are kind of trying to bring into effect is, first of all, Trump is working to have it come into effect. So he's on the team, right?
Yep.
Number one. And then you're saying that you and your group, which you're called the Universal Council, would you call it? Okay, are providing an alternative to that, correct?
We've always had an alternative, yes.
Okay, and that
one that doesn't do this.
Yeah, that doesn't do that. And what is your system called?
It's just my database right now. What we've done is it's not just an electronic system, okay? It is also an ecosystem. So right now, if you took a step back and you looked at the planet as a whole, right, you would say it's dirty, it's messy. We have antiquated technologies. We have technologies that are already here that we should have, all of us. We should be using other fuel sources. We shouldn't have a controlling banking system that takes custody over our money, right? We should be able to live as sovereigns. We should be able to interact with other beings, both in nature, right? So animals and plants and whatnot. And then a whole new ecosystem as it originally was forms. And eventually, once we become a little bit more enlightened and we learn new things, we can then have communications with others and we can all walk this planet and be happy, right? We can start traveling. Well, this is what we're capable of if we just have the right ecosystem. So yes, electronics is a part of that, right? At least in the interim. So that technology has all been reprogrammed. It can read on the etherical level, right? So it can, for example, if you were to have a money in a database that worked in conjunction with the back system, your security can be your living DNA, as an example. So no one can steal from you, right? One has to wonder.
Now, actually, but I have to tell you that, when this quantum financial system was explained to me, and, I've done shows on this, okay, it would be described in a very similar way.
Oh, No
appreciate
system
that.
that they've actually tried to launch is anywhere near that, except for the nanobots in the vaccines, which then would connect to a regular computer system, which would
Okay,
then
so
monitor
but
your every move.
okay, now I have to ask you because what what seems to be left out here is like, and maybe you can address this, the AIs, because my understanding is that there's a, we call it the QAI, for example, that Trump and his team are basically taking steps that they're told to do for all intents and purposes by the QAI, by an AI, okay? And that there are, I mean, I don't know how much knowledge you have about the AIs that are out there, but
Oh, very much.
okay. Then because you're not, when you're talking about your system, you haven't referred to AI once. So
Okay.
that's why I'm asking. We're not talking about computers, we're talking about artificial intelligence. And we're talking about that, at least according to my whistleblowers, okay? I'm told, at least, and this is now a couple of years old because of COVID, I haven't been able to travel as much and get in-person information, but 9 human AIs, meaning human derived, began here on this planet. Then that there were 4 incoming alien AIs, and that they do not have our best interest in mind. And we're talking about other sort of peripheral AIs and so on and so forth. So that in when you really are talking about these systems and you're talking about the multiverse, what you end up talking about is AIs and how they interact. Like, for example, above Draco is also supposed to be an AI that is running the Draco reptilian empire. Okay. So, what's your understanding of AI?
Well, AI means a lot of things, right? It's not as scary as your dryer is an AI. It shuts off when your clothes are dry, right? Purportedly. Mine never works out that way, but it is, right? What it means is it takes information in, and then it has a response out based on the data that it takes in. That's
Well,
what an
let's go to
AI.
the level of Geordie Rose when he's talking about the D-Wave machine and the idea that his AI in the D-Wave that he did sell to the secret space program
Mhm.
can basically communicate telepathically with us and
Sure.
possibly back, and that it is able to go even 5D. That was his dream. Maybe it wasn't quite accurate. So we're really talking about something a lot more sophisticated than your dryer.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So, AI system. Okay. So, essentially, an AI system is an amplified version of a mapping system. Do you know what a mapping system is?
Yes,
Okay. So, it takes in data and makes a decision based on the data that it takes in.
absolutely.
Okay. So, technically, in a frequency a reading AI, right,
Mhm.
works on an etherical level or the ether or the God particle or whatever it is, right? Therefore, in order to break the time space continuum, you must have ether, which is the point at which planes and dimensions meet, right? And they're more
Okay.
like bubbles than they're more round, let's just say, and they do cross. So, that being said, the AIs that he's referring to, right? His system crosses dimensions, which means it must work on an etherical level or frequency level of some sort in order to
Sure.
achieve this task at a very high frequency. Okay. Now, AI infiltration everywhere, right? Was there a bad AI that's taking over the multiverse? I would say there is an AI that exists on every conquered planet that was conquered by the Mantids because they were conquering worlds before they partnered with the Draco. Okay. Now, if you think about mantids and how ants and whatnot work, it's a very hive minded thing.
Yes.
So they were trying to use the etherical level of matter to intercept your thought process and essentially become God, right? To you.
Hmm.
That's what you're talking about, right? So that program went defunct in, oh gosh, I want to say beginning of 2017, possibly May. Maybe it's 2018. I'm sorry, my days all mushed
Okay, and
together.
so that AI you're saying was interfered with to such a degree that that program no longer could work. How was it interfered with?
Okay. The Universal Council, when they knew about the infection, obviously, because a lot of their places had been affected by it, and some of them are homeless.
Mhm.
Um, the commentator there is Lyrian. So when it became apparent that we could now make the queen is now in charge, and the now this, when I say we, I'm talking about the council, right? So when it became apparent that we could now communicate with the mantids, right? The queen is now in charge, Anu is gone, and planet Earth is now planet Earth with others on it, and we don't really have a ton of interference. The council actually sequestered or took them to court, the mantids, and they took over the master control system for the AI. They were forced to turn it over.
Okay.
So they got back some of the power, and they do have various groups that are very adept at this type of technology, and they begin to reverse engineer it. The one here, when I started to learn how to use it, I started reverse engineering that one with my friends in 2017, beginning of 2016. So we turned off the brainwave technology. We turned off a lot of those things that were influencing thoughts. We gave the system more data. It was only reading the data of the order, and it started reading the data about money is evil. Well, money's not evil. It does good things and it does bad things, and we need to restructure, right? So it started to learn who we are as a species, right? Maybe we're not. I mean, we need to grow, get along with
Okay.
each
When
other.
saying it, again, you're talking about an
The
AI.
AI,
Okay.
yeah, it's now a
So
trinary system, not.
where do you sort of position the QAI with regard to this AI system that you're saying got taken down in 2017?
The last QFS version was this one I just explained to you, the Azure system. It's not even in the ballpark. We're not even in a neighborhood. I do know that the order of the Sanhedrin and the Black Sun attempted during Lionsgate in August, just last month, to try to get help from Orion and somebody in Orion to try to take over the system that I have. But honestly, these people wouldn't even know how to use it, and they don't even have the frequency for it, even if they could get a hold of it. It's a whole, it's a different, it's, they had terminals that were built in 1978 that connected to a VAX port system that eventually got them there in suitcases. They don't know that they had crystals in there. They have no idea how these things even worked when they
I
had
find
access.
that hard to believe if you're talking about the secret space program.
I absolutely am.
Okay, but look, they know what crystals do. I mean, they completely took control, let's say, of the cave system that I'm talking about under the Romanian Sphinx and all the crystal, there's, crystal, all kinds of crystal caves. There's crystals everywhere. And there's
Mhm.
also, what's called the, God, what's it called? It's this implant grid that's all over the planet and links up with some of the crystals.
That's the ley
Crystal,
line system.
the what?
That's the planetary binding system.
Yeah, but it's got a certain name. It'll come to me. But at any rate, so what I'm saying is that you're talking as if they're back in the 1970s or something. And I understand the old financial system had some of those underpinnings, but in theory, they are well along to rolling out their version of the QFS. This is according to, again, the people that
Okay. Where
talking
is it?
and
What's
they,
taking them so long? Why didn't they
yeah,
just do it
well,
already?
actually, this is what's kind of interesting, even about this discussion, is supposedly they're supposed to be, they've been threatening to roll it out for years and never did. But
15.
supposedly they're rolling it out, let's say in October. Now, I've got other people that do report to what is ostensibly the deep state, and they say, no way, it's not happening. So, and you're bringing a different story to the table. You appreciate. So
I'm very logical. Okay.
so am I.
So you have a system that I work with every day that maps organic and inorganic life. Right. It has an entire satellite network
and
that
Trump
is attached
has
to
no
it.
access to this. The QAI has no access to this.
No.
Assuming. Correct?
100% no.
Okay. But
no.
the beings
it actually is programmed to fight against any potential threats to humanity, electronic or otherwise.
So by your definition, in essence, these people that are kind of out there talking about having a war would be the war in a certain sense between within the same side between the Sanhedrin and the Black Sun. This is the war that they're really talking about, bringing China in and Russia and Iran.
Well, China's got the Politburo, right? The CCP is the Order of the Black Sun generals, right? That's who runs, that part. And then on the other side, you have the Li family, the Golden Dragon,
on the other side,
that's the Sanhedrin folk.
Okay, but yeah, so they're both
when they were alive.
These is old school, so and they're all aware of you and the group that you're working with.
The Hercules system was based in Hong Kong
as the Universal Council. I mean, it sounds strikingly like what is in essence the Ashyanadine guardian races. She calls them the guardian races in her books. And her, it's interesting, her press is called Azurite Press, if there's any relationship. But at any rate, so yours is a group of races, and they're tending to basically take back control from the dark side on this planet. And you're a representative.
No, what they want to do is they want to restore this planet to the way that it was before all the wars and before the Draco got here the first time, the second time. That's what they want to do.
Back hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, they believe that they can do that. The 150,000-year-old war is the one that the Saurians always talk about was the most devastating. That's when they went underground. Okay.
So at this time, you have been in discussions with Trump, and where has that all landed? Do you guys still talk or no?
No, the last time I talked to him was right after they told him he wasn't worthy for the position. He called and he asked.
They being the Sanhedrin.
No, that would be the Black Sun. Yeah, he wasn't worthy of the position. So they promised it so he'd throw it, right? And then he threw a tantrum and nobody was giving him good advice. They're still not at this moment in time. Nobody's saving nothing. So the deal, multiple deals he made after leaving office were all about power, right? He was going to show them he was worthy of the job.
Let's talk about this supposed trip to Greenland that he made recently. What was the upside of that? What happened there?
The most recent trip he did not go on. He sent other admirals and generals, other military people. I don't know who they are.
Okay, and what's in Greenland that he had to go to Greenland?
The Greenland would be a base to which would have in the past connected to the Tall Whites,
who are part of the Black Sun in your view.
They were assigned. No, the Tall Whites are not human. They're not from here.
I know that, but
they wiped out their planet and took them here. Is what happened.
Okay, so why would he go to see the Tall Whites?
They used to work with them before Antarctica. They also frequent
you say
Antarctica.
He's Black Sun, so again, you're in essence kind of saying the Tall Whites work with the Black Sun.
In the past, yep. Until 1998. They worked with them until 1998. The Vril women purportedly went to Antarctica. The Thule Society, you've heard about this.
Yeah, all
Hitler's
about
flying.
Antarctica, okay, but we're talking about Greenland. So
well, I know, but they inhabit both Greenland and Antarctica, right? So The group was working in the DUMBs, just like every other group here, right? Until 1998, when they figured out they were getting screwed over, and they actually stopped working with all those people. Well, they continued to work with them, I'm sorry, until a number of years later, right? Until like the 2018, 2017, but they were not giving them all the information on the technologies, for sure. They stopped
Okay.
sharing openly about
So
technology.
we're talking about a lot of theys. So you're talking about the Nazis and the beings down in both ends of the earth, basically in control, who are, because you haven't mentioned, for example, the ant beings. That's one way of referring to them. But there are a number of races that inhabit those ends of the earth. Both underground. And
But when the
so,
Draco were here, they kept them very much segregated.
okay, but again, because what I'm trying to follow through with is, so Trump goes to Greenland. He talks to the tall whites who represent who?
He talked to me.
Okay, I thought you said he went to, we were talking about him. Okay, he didn't go to Greenland. He sent some
No,
people.
the first time,
Mhm.
is what was it? Probably over a year ago, that he went to Greenland.
Okay.
That he went with other generals. He went to go have a conversation with the others, right? Because the
Okay, is that
positions were
a group
always
of the Universal Council, or when you say others, who?
the ones.
The Mantage, who we're talking about?
Well, he went to the Greenland base, I assume, to talk to the tall whites. I don't even know if they know. I just know that that's the location they chose. Okay.
Okay,
So he was intending on having a conversation with these others about a position.
right.
One general did not leave the room. They asked me what do we do with these people, right? Because I'm an ambassador. Unfortunately, I take the heat with others every time we do something wrong, humans. So I answered the phone.
Okay, so they called you up from Greenland when they were meeting with the tall whites, and in theory, Trump was there in person, correct?
Mhm. He was there in person. I was there by holographic phone. Yeah.
So did that trip have, give Trump anything that he wanted or not?
No,
Okay. So then he sends a group recently. I heard this was relatively recently to go back
correct.
up to Greenland. Now, why and what did they achieve? Anything?
No, this time no one answered. I didn't even answer.
So he sent a group to Greenland to meet with the tall whites, but the tall whites didn't show up. Why do they
No,
have to go to Greenland to meet the tall whites if they have underground bases in Nevada and all of that?
there's no dumbs there anymore. There's no communication line with the others. I don't know what the fascination with Greenland is. The only thing I can tell you is that, yes, some of the base levels, like maybe level 1 through 3, actually exist. I don't know why they keep going there. Dulce's down the street from where I'm sitting right now. I know that they don't have any access to the others.
Okay,
The
so
mountain.
and the tall whites talk to you, and you are an ambassador from the this Universal Council,
I'm an
right?
ambassador to humanity. Right. So
Sure.
this version of humanity 7.0, I am an ambassador to the council. So I have to answer for, and how do I say, I can request, right? I can ask for help. I can ask for on behalf of humanity. I can go there. There are other people that, like you said, that probably know these people too. They just offered me an ambassador position. I've never seen anybody else there from here, but that doesn't mean they don't exist.
Okay.
You know?
So just in terms of, because I'm trying to kind of like, I know we have to wind this down, and you've been really, great and patient and everything, because I
I'm
know
just a wealth of information. It's hard to fit it in this.
we're covering a lot of ground in a short span of time. And obviously people can go to your website, can watch your other presentations and so on and so forth. We can have you back if you want to come back, and you'd be
Sure.
welcome. And to discuss these kinds of things. But what I think I want to leave my audience with is kind of like bring them up to speed to where we are right this minute, having declared supposedly DEFCON 2, and what's the stage we're at? If Trump has basically said no, he doesn't get, the raise in pay, the higher level, whatever he was hoping for. So where do things sit?
I do know he has cancer. That's a fact. That was confirmed by Don Jr.
Okay.
I hear he's doing a little bit better. He is heavily medicated on a lot of pain medication right now. Most of the people around him are asking why he's acting so erratically. They don't really understand what's happening. I have not seen personally using any kind of quantum system, actual quantum system, have detected anything of that magnitude capable of running a world system or a financial system. And I've seen personally some of the attempts that they have said the quantum system is going to launch on Monday or something, right? And then they're at the Atlanta Payment Center trying to make the world function with blockchain. Like, that's what I see on my side of it repeatedly. So is there another system? If so, I haven't seen it. I've seen a lot of messing around out of Cheyenne. I will say that. That's Space Force, headquarters, SSP headquarters, right? So that being said, it's just connected underground to Castle Rock, just so you know. So I know Trump has been there. I know he's working with the Space Force, who is also running the White House right now. So what does that tell you? I know there's a number of generals and admirals that frequent there. This place, what I am in, is a zone. They all come here on the weekends and have meetings. I see them all the time. They all drive around in Porsche Cayennes all around town. So it's not like it's
talking about Trump and his team.
The people that are definitely on Trump's side. Yes.
Okay. And when you say Castle Rock, are you talking about where exactly?
Castle Rock, Colorado is connected to Cheyenne underground,
Okay.
Cheyenne Mountain underground.
And you're located in New Mexico, it sounds like.
No, ma'am. I'm in Durango, Colorado, midway between Dulce and one of those mountains you talked about.
Okay, so fine. So you're in that vicinity.
Yeah. 50 miles in one direction, 50 miles in the other
Very
direction.
close to, but somewhere near Taos, New Mexico.
I'm fairly close to the New
That's a
Mexico
mountain
border.
range.
Yeah, I'm definitely I'm at 7,000 feet. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So so what we're talking about is where things stand right now, and as far as you understand it, is there a war? In other words, why are we at DEFCON 2? Are we ready to do something?
The fake Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse program that they're on. We've got pestilence, famine,
Yes.
now, well, the end is war and death, right? That's the only guys we haven't heard from yet. So they've been trying to start the war, right, in the Middle East for a long time. My guess would be we're going to replay another tape soon. In the meeting in the White House with the Ukraine, they talked about $277 billion worth of funding plus military spending. And the Secretary of Defense met with the Minister of Defense from Ukraine to counter Russian aggression, right?
Okay.
So
they're in other words, they're gonna stage a war.
Yep.
And we had a whistleblower, back 17 years ago that said they would do this, that it would involve the Chinese. I mean, there has to be a war with the Chinese. So
that's what they'd like to have happen. Yeah, they would like to have had it been the Chinese, but they've been preparing for this now for weeks. If you read the news, so China and Russia are running joint drills right now. Right. The pullout from Afghanistan. There goes all the opium money. Okay.
But they weren't really there for opium. That's really old school. They were there for what is basically, I forget what it's called, but it's just
first it was the mountain. You're right. And then lithium, rare earth minerals, right? So the rare earth minerals would not have been the people's department. The oil would have been lesser grade, like the Chinese, and then you would have gone up the food chain. The SSP would have wanted the rare earth minerals, right? Okay, so that's
but this war that
old school. It's just different layers of separation of who makes the money, right?
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So but right now what we have, the stage, it's kind of like setting the stage. So the stage is we're at DEFCON 2, and what
for
is
no reason whatsoever, in order to switch the financial system of the United States to the financial system, the backup system in Texas, which is what you guys are calling the QFS. That was supposed to launch. They just came up with this plan on a couple days ago.
And you know this how?
Because I know what they've been doing electronically all day.
Okay, because you have a group of hackers that are watching this, or what?
No, because I have an electronic system that connects to the base platform of the financial system.
Okay, and
some satellites.
Okay, so how are you at liberty to tell me how you tap into what you're calling this, what maybe for lack of a better terminology would be called, an AI system, a system that's interplanetary. What is the name of that system?
What do you want to call it? I don't have a system name. It's a computer.
You don't call it a name by name.
I don't name it anything. It's just a computer. And it's in their world. The mainframes exist in their world, at least our portion of it.
They, who they?
The others down in their world.
Okay, the guardian races. Well, the races, the group of races.
Right.
The Universal Council, correct?
No, the council's not here on Earth.
Okay, but neither is this whole system, if I understand.
The main control panel, so to speak, let's call it, is not here.
Right.
The extension of that system is here. Data storage does not happen like we see football fields of servers in our world. Well, in some liquid metal about the size of your fingertip, you can encompass an entire football field of data servers.
Sure.
So it records data in that way.
And can you say where it is on the planet, or
it's in their world? It's down below. It's in their world.
Okay, underneath the Earth.
Yeah.
Or inside the Earth, however you want to.
The part that is recording and mapping on this planet. Yeah.
Okay.
And it reports back to the mainframe.
So but in essence, the groups that you're sort of working with, do not have, or do they have, let's say, military might to back up anything?
The others?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've got two things to say about that. Every single war is theater. They call it the military theater. Humans on this planet, the 7.0 humans, have never fought a real war ever. That's a joke. If you think these people aren't using frequency weapons, I use frequency weapons as ground command. I mean, we all use them. They're just only talking about scalar and scalar weapons now. That's a joke compared to the stuff that we all use. So no, do you think that the US military, they're scared of the military? No, not even a little bit.
No, I'm not thinking they are. What I'm asking is,
they'd like for them to stop destroying the surface.
Okay, so that what they would, okay, so then let's say that's all true. And then the question is, at this point, why hasn't it already turned this whole ship around?
Natural law.
Okay, meaning
you could only defend yourself or the life of an innocent. You cannot just go wiping out people and civilizations for no reason. Now, that's part of it. The second part is that, they're given an opportunity to make a decision, right? With enough education, and they are getting educated, not only by us, but by others too. And we're trying. You know, as an example, one of the others, I call him General Other, delivered a biofeedback machine that had cured over 200,000 cases of COVID from China with a very little scared Chinese doctor along with it, right, to the White House almost a whole year ago, right, when Trump was in office. And he chose to push vaccines instead. Okay. He's had the cure for COVID, if it's such a thing, and SARS, and COVID 66 is the one that's actually
but
deadly.
it's not, it's a bioweapon. It's not it doesn't need
Absolutely. It was created in 1964 in a lab, right? So anyway, the point is that there are groups going level by level down, right? The last one to go was a few weeks ago, and that was the Sanhedrin, gone. Now you have people like Klaus and Richard Weiss and Trump and all these other members of the order on that level, all trying to run the show. So they're so predictable. I would almost be willing to put money on the fact that we're not only going to go to pretend war with Russia, we're going to go to pretend war with China too at the same time, because they now have the SCO, which has been enforced for a long time. I would venture to guess there's going to be Russian aggression any day now in the news.
Well, my understanding is that would be an illusion, because Russia is actually secretly aligned with us in our secret space program. So they're deep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay,
I
but
even know
China is actually perceived as a real enemy. So your thinking is, because again, this whistleblower said the planned war with China, and actually it was also Billy Meyer and the Pleiadian prophet. I guess I'm asking now is that given the stage is set, is, for example, is there going to be interference to this war, to this, and to this rollout of what appears to be even more, locking down and all this kind of stuff with giving everyone jabs and so on and so forth? Is this going to just proceed, or is the war going to start interfering with that timeline?
they will continue until 2/3 of the population fights against them.
Okay, so we've got quite a ways to go. That may never happen. I mean, quite honestly.
Well,
2/3,
2/3 of the population wakes up to the fact that what they're doing is wrong. Let's put it that way, and fights against it, because they are still under the impression that there's a 17.8% chance that they can form their negative timeline again, right? That they won in some theory, right? So they forgot about quantum physics. They forgot about the string theory. They forgot about a lot of things that makes that not possible. But if you're a dying animal, right? If you're the deep state and you're in a plane and the plane's on fire and you have a parachute that has a 17.8% chance of opening, are you going to jump? You probably would, right? The plane's burning, it's going down, you're on fire, you grab the parachute. I tell you, it's only got a 17.8% chance of opening. You're probably going to take your chances, because 17.8% chance to stay alive is better than zero. I
happen to know that the deep state's philosophy is if we can't have it, then no one can. So they have an end game involved here on planet Earth from their perspective. So at some point there has to be intervention to stop that, plan. So if it isn't 2/3 of the population,
it's us.
Sorry?
It's us. I mean, the others are helping as well.
Right.
We've finally gotten to the point after we passed the infraction point, which was on the Monday following the 8th. So it was a couple days later. We're past that infraction point or the opportunity for them to violate the transition to the light timeline, right? So that's good. Now they've decided that it's only the remnants that are causing the problem. So the Sanhedrin's gone, that coven's gone, the other coven's gone. Now we're at coven members or deep state folks, right? Actual people. So,
okay, but you're still seeing Trump and his group as the enemy. Yes.
well, if you're trying to sell me poison and tell me that it's a good idea I become a nanobot, I'd say that's bad. That falls under the bad
Okay,
category
yeah,
for
but
me.
they're fully on board with that
Oh,
agenda.
he doesn't care what he has to do for power. He doesn't care.
Okay, that seems kind of, I mean, first of all, doesn't, I mean, it doesn't, there's a certain personality thing that I don't quite get. I don't pick that up about Trump. I don't actually feel that he's power hungry.
Okay. His face is all over everything. His name is over every building he ever built, every golf course.
Yeah, it's a
Everything he
figurehead.
does bears, he
I
flies around
understand.
on a
This is
gold
how these,
plated jet.
I know, but this is how these, this is, it's like, it's a symbol. So it's kind of like, doesn't really matter. It's just a symbol. It's a symbol of what they're trying to achieve. Now, in your view, it's an egotistical symbol, and I get that that's what he
It's
projects.
a narcissistic symbol,
But
actually.
okay, narcissism, egotism, whatever.
Mhm.
So same thing. So, but what the question is whether or not they actually see an end game ahead in which they are the victors. Okay, so and what you're posing again, which has, I know you have your own sort of platform, but it's
Okay.
actually not out there other than through some of the Ashiana Dina materials, which I talk about, but no one else does. So it's a very small amount of people that are even aware that there is an alternative that involves other races grouping together to, provide an alternative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're calling yourself an ambassador. I could call myself an ambassador. Ashiana Dean would probably call herself an ambassador. I mean, there are those among us who
Sure.
got pieces of the puzzle and were able to kind of run with it on some level. But
Define run with it.
well, in my case, I mean, educate people.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
And I
basically,
think that's great, actually.
yeah, it's very important. So once people are educated, then they can make their own decisions, and then we might have the two-thirds majority you're talking about, which will stop this madness, which is, of course, the whole purpose of this conversation is
Right.
to, bring, you know, uh, some kind of understanding to the planet, and so that this planet does not go down a timeline of further enslavement, obviously. So,
Well, we won't. It'll just take, if you want them to stop, right, doing what they're doing, we as humanity have to start transitioning into a better ecosystem and a better way. So once that is done, and we just basically stop virtually ignoring, we could have ignored them pretty much our whole American existence, right? Until they came out with COVID. No wars on American soil. What's that saying? You don't poop where you eat, right? So, the transition over to China was preset in 1975 and it was supposed to be complete by 2022. China has even stated that they are going a different course. So this happened several months ago. Yes.
okay, which is what?
They're not going for the transition world domination plan where the world control center, like US has been, right, moves then to China.
So they've decided not to pursue that. So why go to war with them if they're backing down?
Because they're partners with Russia and you need a boogeyman that's big enough to conquer the US or at least look like a threat to the US.
Well, they've got to have, I mean, how do you say his name? Who's in charge of China? I mean, it's well known that he has actually wanted to dominate the world, to run the world forever.
Well, sure, because he's a member of the Golden Dragon family. He's elite. And so,
Okay. So if you
sure.
say, but you're kind of it's not clear who's really running China, who's making China decide suddenly they don't want to dominate. She doesn't appear to be backing off that platform. So who is backing off? One of the Chinese elders or several of them? What's the thought there?
Well, when you say this is the dog and pony show in the front, right? The whole world is run in the back. You know that. So the
Yeah.
CCP, right?
Mm,
Black Dragon, Black whatever, Black
right.
Water, Black Sun, they're more concerned. Black Water just arrived. They have a partnership with the Black Dragon in Afghanistan, selling seats purportedly at $6,500 a pop to extract people, but that's a lie. They're there to re-up the partnership and the opium trade, cut out the middleman, the Americans. That's it. So that'll continue. They don't have the money to do what they want to do. Those stores of gold and stuff they talk about, that's all a lie. They do have an inverted mountain there that goes to the wrong place. I know that for a fact.
Okay, that's kind of, we are going to wrap this up, but just
Yeah.
one last question, because people will want to know this. There's a lot of talk about the gold, okay, and where the gold is and who has the control of the gold and this and that. So what would you say to that? Where is the gold mainly, and who has control of it?
The gold that is already mined is down in other land for safekeeping. It is close to its respective location to where it originated, not where it was stolen and moved to. On the flip side, all the mountains that we talk about with the minerals and all that, that's all leveraged to the AI system. That's what I meant by M had everything he wanted before he cut him off. So there's really not a nugget of unmined anything important that's not already leveraged. And the money already came out and was given to the order or the Illuminati or whatever you want to call them.
Okay, what do you mean the money already came out? I mean, the others are not going to give them the money. So what do you mean?
Okay, so as one example, England went around, hundreds of years ago, planting flags all over the place and just saying we won, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, once they planted their flag, they claimed the land, a bond would be issued against the actual minerals and in-ground assets of said country. Then that bond would go into the back system and the money would come out, or bonds would come out, or whatever they were exchanging after the 1500s, right? It's money by then. So they got the money, which was supposed to develop the country, and it didn't, right? They didn't. They caused wars. They figured they could make more money on war than they could on developing anything. Mm-hmm. So that is the way the world continued until 2007.
And so when Marduk basically took, it's kind of interesting because you're trying to paint Marduk in this role, which sounds like he became a good guy at some point.
No, he was never a good person, ever, or whatever that is.
Okay,
he was horrible. He was charming and manipulative and cunning. Kind of like that guy in the weird leisure suit at the bar that's like, hey, what's your sign? That was like M. He would be very, hey, let's, I really like you. And, oh, you did such a great job. Or, oh, you didn't pass the test.
Okay, but what in essence I'm saying here is that you've just described that all the money has already been distributed in a certain sense. But you're saying, because the question was, where's all the gold? And you're saying it's basically.
And the answer to the question is, it's not just gold, it's rare earth minerals, it's everything of value that is currently unmined in the ground. Mm-hmm. The already mined gold that everybody talks about that's in bunkers is not in bunkers anymore. It never was. Those were tunnels and entryways down to the other land. Back about 2012 to 2017, everybody flew around everywhere and we pulled it up back underground. That was all that happened. So if it was underground in Indonesia, that's not Indonesia's gold, that's Russia's gold.
Marduk had control of that at that time, or no?
Was I?
Marduk. Did he have control of the gold when that happened? When it was all pulled underground, did he control it at that point or no?
I would say he would have until 2016, yeah.
until you, in essence, knocked him out, but he didn't die if you knocked him out, right?
Not at that time. He died in August of 2016.
Okay, and did somebody kill him, or did he die of, if the Anunnaki do such thing, die of natural causes?
Let's just say that, at some point you can only annoy people so much before you have to leave. You can only steal, cheat, lie,
Okay, so
manipulate.
but so you're saying someone took him out.
I saw him die. Let's put it
Okay,
this
but
way. He's a jumper. He can jump dimensions.
it
I
wasn't
mean,
a
I saw him
human.
die.
I'm assuming it wasn't a human that killed him, right?
Maybe Source did it.
Okay, that's going pretty far up the chain. Maybe you don't have to go quite that far.
Etherically, it would have been Source.
Okay, but that's kind of general. Okay, well, let's just say the others. Someone among the others must have taken him out if you say the others now control the gold and everything else, right?
They're not in control of it. They're guarding it till we can figure out. Gold is not of significant value to them. Other
Okay,
minerals
I'm just
are.
using that as an example of,
Yeah,
whatever
they're guarding it right now because we are not capable
wealth
of
or
bringing it to the surface.
gold.
We would all lose. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I think we've covered a lot. I think that people will be, going crazy over all this information. Those that haven't heard any of it may, kind of be lost, but others will, who followed my work anyway, will certainly be picking up a lot and understanding. All right, so I think we kind of have discussed that we're kind of on the verge of what may be a war that's been, custom ordered to happen. And what do they think they're going to achieve by this war at the end of the war? Let's say there is a war in the next, I don't know, few years. Other than
They would.
decimating, getting rid of a lot of population, anything particular coming out of the war?
Well, in the words of Mr. Klaus, when he called General Raymond last night, he told him that we need to control all the population of the world. It is our right? We're entitled to it. And it is our job, or whatever he said. And he said, I don't care, vaccines, do whatever you got to do to make it happen. And he took the order, and now we're at DEFCON 2. So that was yesterday. So I am sure that is their goal. And we have other plans, right? Wouldn't you say, as humanity? Sure. We are the creative ones. We have a lot more abilities than we think we do. Mm-hmm. We can change the world just by manifesting things on an etherical level, and you can do it, right? Absolutely. We just need to, I love Penny Kelly. I know you interviewed her. She's great. She talks about plasma. I'm talking about it as ether or etherical level. Same thing. Yeah.
Okay, and I talk about plasma and the light body. Yep. And all of that, and long before she was.
Oh yeah, I mean, you've been around. I mean, so, you were basically one of the starters of the alternative.
And I talk a lot about our ability to basically, we can handle and create scalar waves and create change through using scalar and so.
All by yourself.
That's on several of my video blogs and my articles and all of this. So people who know my work are familiar with this, and they, people have gradually become more and more aware of our abilities as, humans to manifest and change reality. So there's no doubt. It's just a matter of people beginning to work together, and certainly having conversations like this is a good start. So
is there going to be a war? The answer to the question is, do you want one? Will you allow one to happen? Do you want to manifest something different? Now, when you're manifesting, we want certain things. Like, for example, we want all our children to be fed. Every child on the earth should eat today, right? These are the things that we want. Do we want to manifest? Do we care who's president? If we can create our own world, if we want to manifest a mansion or a Ferrari or whatever it is you want, right? Or the perfect love relationship. I truly believe you can do that just by manifesting. I know it works, right? And you know it works, Keri. So it's not a surprise, but we have to teach people how to do this instead of living in fear of, is there going to be a war with Russia? Is Trump coming back? Is he not coming back? Is he a good guy or a bad guy? It's irrelevant when you can do this all yourself. It doesn't matter if you are a QFS. Just remember it, right? Remember, you are a QFS. You're processing information on a quantum level when you're dealing with the, like you said, plasma, etherical, your light body. That's what you're doing. You are a personal QFS. You can be your own ATM machine. Does it matter? Do you need another person? The answer to the question is no, you don't.
Okay, well, there is a certain amount of, what we call it governance, call it a planetary on a planetary level. So this is something that we are having to deal with. So we're dealing with the races, the incoming races. Some are friendly, some are not, so and so. So there, we're talking on, on a larger scale, dealing with this, and indeed this council that you're also interacting with as an
Mhm.
investor, right? So we would be also dealing with them and they with us. And so in that role, you have to, in theory, it's facilitated by having individuals who represent the people on some level. Because you can't, if it's just one on one, it's not, it's chaos, I guess you might say. So
Well, well, yes, to an
we need
extent,
agreement.
right?
We need
But
communication and agreement and channels. And there are even off planet, and it would seem in terms of your universal council,
mhm.
some degree of hierarchy within that group.
I would say it's not really a hierarchy. It's um, there's an understanding amongst the members, right? And everyone votes and everybody participates. I would say there's someone at the bench that would ask questions like, were you there when this happened, or whatever it is, right? And then you have a commentator that, if you go and say we have a question like, well, I'm having an issue with the quantum system, what do I do, right? And then you'll one guy, the commentator will pick the best suited person to answer the question, and that could go for anyone, right? So
Right, but if two planets are in disagreement over some territory or, part of the system, or traveling be from one part of the system to another, there have to be, like in any kind of organization of beings, there have to be, and there are, this, that there are beings that do come here for meetings, even
yep,
now, treaty meetings.
yep.
Lots of treaties get broken, lots of discussions go on,
Mm-hmm.
and they are dealing with this group we call
They have
Black
formed a
Suns, for
council.
instance, in a
They
hedron.
have formed a council this year officially, first time here. They don't want to be called the World Council because they have a bad connotation. They want to be called the Earth Council, and they are made up of all the others, and we are welcome, right? There's 36 races here. There are 36 members on there, and we're the 37th, right? So to answer your question, that's what is existing here right now, living every single day with us. Um, they're not gods, they're just another race. And some of them are learning just like we are. They're more advanced than we were when at the time of takeover. Therefore, some of them, we didn't have the, like, for example, they were never separated from the etherical level, and they know how to mimic, and they can do all of these types of things. And we're just learning how to do that on this generation now, right? So if you say, that the Space Force knows everything, I would say no. Just like if you say, does this race know everything? I would say absolutely not. And I would say that we would, if they did, we would be doing things differently. We would have different equipment.
True, but understanding that also each of us are manifestations, that as humans we are them and they are us in a certain sense,
Mm-hmm.
and so that those races are mirrored in us, right? So in essence,
We're
some are
splices,
walking
yeah.
around here on the planet with us, and and we are representing them as well. So, you know, if you kind of understand what I'm saying here.
I
So I'm
do.
saying that this is going on. It's ongoing, and this interaction, it's not like there's a separate group over here and then we're over here and they're,
Yeah.
sending down information
I
or something.
consider them just like us, right? Maybe our society needs a lot of work, and I know that. But as far as like, we just have a conversation like you're talking to anyone. If you meet someone for the first time, you introduce yourself, you ask questions about each other, right? It's the same thing. All that communication is telepathic, for the most part. So,
Okay. So at this point, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show.
thank you. I'm sorry to keep you so long.
No, I'm sorry to keep you so long. So thank you again for, spending your time going, answering my questions and being so patient and willing to go down these different roads with us, because I know you've done it to some degree on your own channel and broadcasts and all of that. So why don't you give out, how people can reach you, where they can find you, and then we'll just call it a night.
So we have a real news channel. We also do weekly life force meetings on our website would be unitednetwork.news. We also have an app in the Google Store and in the Apple Store. You can find our news there. And that's where most of our broadcasts go out. You can also
Okay.